Wow, wow, guys, just wow. Lots of new reveals today. We got some new set photos. I'm going to talk about two articles and show off some of the set photos we got. Not too many set photos, but a lot of information. I'm honestly extremely shocked that they were willing to show this, but oh well. We are going to just go on ahead and yeah, we're just gonna roll with it. So, and yes, there are, I guess you could say, some spoilers in this video, because as I'm getting ready to say a big spoiler word, they reveal behind the scene images of Mechagodzilla. I am not joking, not making that up. Don't think I'm kidding. We'll get to it. So let's go on ahead and read the first of two articles. All right, so Godzilla vs Kong. 51 things we learned while visiting the set of the MonsterVerse Epic Smackdown by Matt Goldberg. This posted 51 minutes ago. In March 2019, a group of fellow journalists and I went to Brisbane, Australia. Hopefully, I said that right. Please don't kill me. To visit the set of Godzilla vs. Kong. For me, this was the third time visiting the set of a Godzilla movie, having previous done visits for 2014's Godzilla and 2019 Godzilla King of the Monsters. I obviously need to know how my chunky son would fare when matched up against a very angry monkey. So I packed and I got a 22-hour flight to Australia. Then the following day, or it was the previous day, time loses all meaning on a flight that long, headed to Village Roadshow Studios. Our day began by talking with the producer, Alex Garcia, and he outlined most of the plot for us. I won't do that here because he clearly doesn't want people knowing what happens by the time when you get to the third act, but I'll give a broad outline. So here we go, guys. We're going to get a lot of information on the movie. The film takes place 5 years after the events of King of the Monsters. That is huge. Godzilla has been reinstated as the apex predator, but he's been acting erratically, and Madison, Millie Bobby Brown, believes there's a reason for his actions. Monarch, reaching to global fears about the Titans, has been creating access to a hollow Earth in a attempt to lure the monsters back beneath the surface and stem their revenge or their rampage. An attempt to take Kong away from Skull Island brings him into conflict with Godzilla. While we still see the human side through Monarch, there's now an evil human company called Apex. That's a megalithic. Is that how it is? Organization doing some bad stuff. Skull Island is what happens when the Hollow Earth comes to the surface. So in a way, Skull Island is like the prelude to the threat that can engulf the planet. Did I read that right? That's nuts. What? Okay. Um, as usual with these movies, neither Kong or Godzilla are inherently good or evil. They're simply fighting for what motivates them. Madison works to investigate with the help of Josh, Julian Dennison, as well as a former Apex technician, Bernie Hayes, played by Brian Tyree Henry. They told us more than that, but again, I don't want to spoil any of the surprises for those wondering how Kong could even take on a monster the size of Godzilla. We were told to keep in mind that Skull Island takes place 40 years prior to this movie, and that I don't know that word. I'm sorry. Kong's gotten bigger and more battle scarred. We were taken to the set, and the fans of the Godzilla franchise will probably be able to read between the lines of what I'm about to describe. You may recall that in the post-credit scene, King of the Monsters, Alan Jonah purchases Ghidorah's severed head, and we walked on set, and there was a gigantic Ghidorah skull that had been wired up and made technological. It's one of the cooler sets I've seen, as it looks like they've taken organic matter of Ghidorah and mechanized it into some kind of new mechanized creature. In the scene, we watch Madison, Josh, and Bernie work to infiltrate the skull and find out what exactly Apex is up to. I knew about that. A take we watch repeatedly is that a sinister character named Shun, I still can't pronounce his name, comes in, talks to an unseen pilot, and says in his disturbing calm voice, "Thank you for your service." It's a bit uneasy, but obviously whatever the monster skull is doing is something big and important to the bad guys. When we spoke to Henry, he told us Bernie is a bit of a conspiracy theories and had his own podcast, but it's kind of shaped by tragedy since he lost his wife. So he turned in on himself to expose Apex. He feels like he saw disaster coming, so he wants to help Madison and Josh bring down Apex, which is doing something to harm Godzilla, which in turn harms the Earth. I feel like it's easy to call him crackpot. It's easy to call him a crazy guy, which he is, says Henry. But at the time, there's heart to him. there's this loyalty he has. He just wants to make sure that the world doesn't get destroyed. He jokingly refers to himself as the Brene of Charf. I'm so bad at, oh my god, of this movie, since he's looking out for Madison and Josh on their mission. He doesn't see Bernie as Team Kong or Team Godzilla, but Team Truth. Although he came in contact with Godzilla first, but his goal is to use the tool at his disposal to bring the truth up to the people. I always referred to Bernie as Anonymous. Bernie, like the head of Anonymous, says Henry, referring to the hacktivist collective, he can see the injustices, but no one really listens to him. With this being his first blockbuster to hit screens, he is also a member of Marvel's Internals. He's excited for people to see a new side of him. What I like about Bernie is that there's joy to him, and he's going to make people joyous about going on this journey as incredibly insane, says Henry. It is very weird to him to be asked about the part of the Godzilla franchise when he can still remember the 98 Godzilla and Diddy's Come With Me. Personally, Henry is Team Godzilla and even used to draw the characters to dream come true. I'll show you guys this later again, but here's the first BTS image. Come back later this week for more on our interview with Henry. We also spoke to Brown, Julie, and Dennison and told us how they've came to test together using scenes from Romeo and Juliet, and they couldn't stop laughing because it was so cringy. How Madison has changed since the events King and Monster. She's now more independent, and that kind of sets her off. I mean, she would be. They said this movie takes place 5 years, so she would be 19 in this movie. Sets off her journey to protect Godzilla. How Brown kept blowing takes of a scene with explosion because she is only bracing for the explosion. There's so much fun. That is so much fun to work with Kyle Chandler, even though he's kind of intimidating. And Brian, Tyree, Henry. Dennison and Henry playfully tease Brown about her British accent by constantly going, "Hello, Governor." Come back tomorrow for a full interview with young cast members. And here we go, Tom Hancock and Owen Patterson. They wanted to delineate between, or we're just going to go with differentiate, between Monarch and Apex by having Monarch be a more government institution that's more concrete with all the colors, while Apex futuristic and sleek. That's pretty cool. The world isn't post-apocalypse since the rise of Godzilla, but he's definitely been trampling some cities, and the film's out to go on a mission to get him to stop doing that. Creating the look at the whole Earth started with going back to Skull Island and trying to pull influences from the ancient human civilizations. When it comes to Hong Kong, they wanted to play up on the Neon City, so that while Hong Kong's recognizable, it's also simply futuristic. They wanted to make a bit more like jungle to give Kong some advantages. They watched all 30 Godzilla movies and all 7 Kong movies to make sure that they're and not only understood the visual language of these characters, but also so they could pop in some fun Easter eggs. In terms of influential movies, Godzilla vs. Kong, Godzilla vs. Destroyer were near the top of the list, as well as Shin Godzilla. The main idea was never to lose sight of scale of these monsters to the human world. That's pretty cool. They use those movies as influence. Other influences on the movie outside of Godzilla and Kong franchise include Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds and even Underwater's kitchen scene from Alien Resurrection. Since the film goes to Whole Earth and they have to populate the Earth, they developed a lot of new creatures. One of the words that Hancock hit multiple times was iconic. He explained, as far as the fighting, it is fun to pick those iconic images. Yeah, they'll be both on the top of a sinking aircraft carrier going at each other. So the goal is that really early on, just say one more thing to Adam was I've identified places after watching those films where you hadn't seen Godzilla in a fight, where you hadn't necessarily seen Kong in a fight. So trying to make a city completely different from how they had photographed before trying to get them in the water. He couldn't think of any great water battles in any of those movies. Okay, I guess you just forget GMK or something, dude. I think there's and Godzilla versus Batra. That was a decent one. Trying to get them into the jungle. So, anyways, just trying to see what we had not seen before and have each interactions embody all those movements. Hey, they were saying there's going to be an underwater battle here, and we just got the poster earlier that shows that. So, all right. So here's one of the images of Mechagodzilla's head. There is another one I'm going to show. We'll get there. But as you guys can see right here, here's one of them. Here's Anne Foley, costume designer. In the film, we met Gia, a child. I thought it was with a J. A child of Skull Island who was adopted by Dr. Lene Andrews, Rebecca Hall. Her look was based on native Skull Island iwi while blended into the more contemporary pieces. So, for example, she got a necklace made out of a skull collar tooth, but she also wears Converse shoes. That's cool. I didn't even notice the skull collar tooth. Everything for Gia was custom made except for the shoes. The mission suit for the Hollow Earth has its own kind of special fabric. Also, as Monarch has now become more official, they have their own uniforms to give them an identity, and there are different levels of uniform with Monarch. Apex comparatively is more in the grays and blacks. The color red is used sparingly in this film, and when it pops up, is used as a symbol for connection to the monsters. So keep that in mind. The color red is going to be important. The coolest part of the Hollow Earth costumes is that they are custom printed with copper over red that allows the red to come through when the copper. Um, the armored part is made out of urethane, which is what they use for stunt padding. The jacket for Madison was taken out of her mom's closet, and it's her mission suit. Everything goes through the process of aging, with the exception of Ethan Gonzalez's character, who's getting newer, dashing clothes or outfits. There are a lot of fun details like base Camp 1 patches for Monarch using the profile of Kong because of Camp 1 bases on Skull Island. The females have practical footwear for their professions, not heels. And here is Adam Wingard. Alright, so let's see what Adam Wingard had to say. Here's what he talked about. How the film is his way to settle a second grade argument had with a friend on a playground who would win in a fight, making sure the human side, whether it's Team Kong or Team Godzilla, always punches up the monster side of the story. He acknowledges that the directors who come before him in the franchise were able to put their unique stamp on the movies, and that's what he wanted to do with Godzilla vs. Kong. He sees the movie as a return to his roots, where a sci-fi action of movies Terminator 2 and Alien was a gateway for horror and becoming a filmmaker. He feels like horror movies help prepare him because they've always had a bit of action bent, like when he showed Face Off to his DP on Your Next. Even Death Note helped him get accumulated to use in VFX, which, before people freak out, yeah, there's some pretty shots in that movie from what I've heard, so I get what he's trying to say. And from what I remember, the special effects from what I heard are really good in that movie. Don't come at me, though. I haven't seen it. He feels like one of the strengths of this film is that the audience are on board with both Godzilla and Kong, as opposed to something like Batman vs Superman, where audiences didn't really know Ben Affleck's new Batman. that's kind of, he just took a jab at them. When it came to crafting the action scenes, he always wanted to keep the terrain in mind and how the monsters would use it. He never felt like he had to course correct Godzilla vs Kong based on reception to Godzilla King of the Monsters. And they have a full interview with Wingard right here, which I am not reading. Now that we've reached the climactic battle of the Monsterverse, I'm not sure if there are any more Godzilla films in the future, although I certainly hope so. It's been a joy seeing how different directors have tackled the iconic character while trying to hold a place to him in the Monsterverse franchise, so that we could get Godzilla vs. Kong. Based on everything I saw, fans of both characters will likely get a kick out of this film, what Wingard has in store. As for who wins, we'll just have to find out next month. First article, some great plot details there. I had no idea this film took place 5 years after. That's insane. Let's move on now. The comic book movies. I don't believe this article. Yeah, this article is not nearly as long. And then we'll take a look at the images. It's rare to walk on a set and drop in awe-inspired holy shit to yourself after more than half a decade of being spoiled by visiting film sets. Much of the blockbuster film calls for green screens surrounding small pieces of a vehicle or building. Walking into Doctor Strange's Sanctorum is quite a memorable moment, as it's touching the Batmobile on the set of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Still, a few sights compared to that of the massive 60-foot long skull created one stage on the Australian set of Godzilla vs. Kong, which prompted an audience once the intense visual of merely one of the many sets were processed. When comic book movies visit the set of Godzilla vs. Kong, the massive skull modeled after the dragon was quite a mystery. Seeing as Godzilla vs. Kong hadn't hit theaters yet, the room was dark, quiet, and had a mind-boggling centerpiece with a glowing neon wires draping from it, and a control room big enough for multiple 6-foot humans stand inside. So the control room is inside or whatever. Now it's clear that the skull of the massive left head of Ghidorah, which Godzilla had severed and is about to play a key role in Godzilla vs. Kong. It should come to no surprise that Godzilla vs. Kong is going big. On the day in Australia back in early 2019, The cast and filmmakers allowed us to see how big the neon colored globe throttling city smashing event will be. Walking in the stage 8 of Village Show Studios on the East Coast, the scope of Godzilla vs. Kong starts to sink in. Stepping into production, we were greeted by darkness, followed by little clothes baggies to put on, our shoes as to not scuff the fully reflective floor on the other side of the curtain, which helps the neon lights stemming from Ghidorah's skull glow and illuminate the room. Reflecting back on the skull itself is quite a moment to take in. Knowing the gigantic creation before my eyes is part of a fictional story, but still feels like something which belongs in the Smithsonian. Closed behind him, top a metal staircase, which is part of the film's canon. The control room is all seems to hint that this is somehow tied to Mechagodzilla. It all gives vibes to Pacific Rim, like Drift, to give someone control of a gigantic robot. That is interesting. Huh. That is very interesting. On this day, Millie Bobby Brown is back to the action to get to the bottom of it. Literally, she and her two friends, Brian, Tyree, Henry, Bernie, and Julian Dunson's Josh, are scoping around the location from below, dodging armed guards and looking for answers, while also serving a few laughs. Um, Here's a better look at this one. It says Godzilla vs. Kong Ghidorah. That's great to know. You get a good look here. There's Shun right there. This is the skull of Ghidorah. You can see all the nice skull details here. I assume this is supposed to be his brain. It's either supposed to be his brain or something else. I don't know exactly. This is so gorgeous. I cannot wait to see stuff like this. This movie's going to be so beautiful. Uh, you can see some cams and stuff. But yeah, Shun's in the control room. This is apparently the control room, so very interesting. She's just trying to become a young woman, and that can be really hard. Brown says of her Madison character, who was last seen more than 4 years ago in the timeline of films. With the help of her little trio, she's really grown as a person. Brown's character is going to have a special connection with Godzilla further than what we've seen before. The first movie, King of the Monsters, her relationship with Godzilla is pretty distant. Brown explains there are more moments in King of the Monsters where she gets to have amazing scenes with him. But definitely this movie. Godzilla vs. King Kong is much more about technical side, learning more about the data of him as a Titan. Of course, the main event of the film is pairing two Titans in for a showdown, of which there will be several, according to the production designer Tom Hancock. 4 years after King of the Monsters, about 4 decades after Kong Skull Island, the showdown between Godzilla and King Kong is more evenly matched than it would have been if the giant monkey were the same size when we saw him. Kong's bigger in this film. There's a line in Skull Island that says he's grown, so he's an adolescent in the film. Godzilla vs. Kong producer Alex Garcia explains, sitting at the end of the conference room table in the film's concept art plastered room, where we begin 40-something years later. He's significantly larger, but he's still the Kong you know. He has a few tricks up his sleeve just by virtue and being around in the modern day. Things that he can use and use tactically that Godzilla can't. Still, Kong has the odds stacked against him. So they're saying Kong is the underdog. Although there were large amounts of time between preceding film featured the film's titular Titans, Godzilla vs. Kong director Adam Wingard is quick to share his appreciation for the works of directors who worked in this world before him. One of the most important things was that it feels like a legitimate sequel to those movies, Wingard says, referencing Godzilla's 2014, Kong Skull Island, King of the Monsters. Even though Kong is a bit different in this film, it's only because he aged from the time of the last film, so he is a little more grizzled and those kind of things. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is part of the problem with King Kong vs. Godzilla in the original movie is that we already established Godzilla. He looks basically like he did in the earlier films, but this is sort of a new King Kong. So the glaring question why they're fighting. Well, the answer was readily available as a means to preserve spoilers. It does seem that the humans are going to play a key role after Godzilla starts acting up, and the story will dive into backstories, looking at the past for the characters along with the futures. When the kaiju beast seems to be a threat to humanity, the humans attempt to enlist King Kong as their defender by retrieving Kong from Skull Island. Goes wary when a shackled Kong is met by Godzilla in an exaggerated Jaws-like sequence. If the epic concept on display is any indication, yeah, it's pretty badass. A second mission is commissioned to go into the Hollow Earth, but it's a much more dangerous journey, Garcia explains, taking a surprisingly deep dive in the film's details. Alexander Skarsgård, Nathan, who at first is resistant is eventually though some very emotional means convinced to go. He told that the new crafts heavies for this journey into the Hollow Earth through this different portal, but Nathan only agrees to go if they take Kong with them. The belief is that if they have a creature they believe came from Hollow Earth, it's probably a smart play too, considering that these are sorts of new monsters in the film, especially in the Hollow Earth sequences. They take Kong off Skyline and start making a journey towards Antarctica, and eventually intersect with Godzilla, who we start to realize has been acting up. He's been acting is because he is trying to stem any other threats to the balance he maintains, Garcia says. Kong obviously hasn't been off Skyline for a long time. The fact he's off is causing disruption in the balance. There's a massive action sequence, which is one of the first things that Adam pitched to us. It's really a phenomenal sequence where Godzilla attacks the fleet. There's a massive battle with Godzilla taking out the ships. He's like a shark in the water approaching Kong, and they have a massive face-off in the water. As for what is causing Godzilla to act up, Garcia and the gang get a bit hush, but we can assume that the massive Apex Corporation could be a part of this. The group, which Garcia describes as Metallithic Technological, this is a new word. I'm not even trying to pronounce that. There you guys go. It's a group which has acquired Ghidorah's skull. As Ghidorah haunts this movie, it would seem there is something brewing here, especially considering Shun's character, Ren Serizawa, is involved, and he might just have a bad taste in his mouth after his father sacrificed himself to juice up Godzilla. It's not really, written into the movie, but how he imagines it is his father, that they were once close, and his father was very accompanied solving the world's problems with Godzilla. And he did sort of follow into his father's footsteps, but he doesn't believe he was heard by his father. As translated by Japanese. In general, he's a character who wants to protect the Earth, and that is his goal. In general, the translator on Earth says, I think the means to get a goal is a little different from everyone else. So there's both the articles. There are more articles, but this is interesting. We've learned a lot of details about the movie. We've learned that why Ren's bad. We learned why Godzilla attacks Kong, etc. Onto the pictures, going over to my Instagram. Here's the other image from Mechagodzilla I was telling you. This is inside the Ghidorah skull. So this is confirmed to be Ghidorah's skull. I kept thinking of Mechagodzilla's head. I don't know why. And you can just see both images here. I posted this over my Instagram. So, hey, if you were on my Instagram, you were the first to see it. So there's that. And as you can see right here, here's the other set photo. Cool stuff, cool stuff. Let me pull up something on Twitter, too. Someone else made a post on Twitter. Alright, and this was also posted on Twitter. I went to the set of Godzilla vs. Kong, learned a lot about why they're fighting, and saw a gigantic Ghidorah skull that made me say, holy shit. There you guys go. That should be all for the video today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you all for watching. Hope everyone had a great day. Thank you once again. And as always, peace out, and bye-bye.